Well, are you sensing a theme this morning? I asked Corey, I sent Corey that poem some time ago because I knew that Corey was one of the people who could manage that, an amazing poem. And did you see Maya Angelou's face on screen? The intensity, the ability she has to feel concern and involvement and infinite love at the same time. She's just absolutely an inspiration. So this week I want to talk about the third verse of that song. I love the world the way it is, 'cause I can plainly see that all the things I judge are done by people just like me. All the things I judge, all the things, whether I judge them to be bad, vicious, horrible, violent, or whether I judge them to be the most beneficial, beautiful, benevolent actions, everything I judge is done by people just like me. Right? And it doesn't matter, even the stuff we think we could never do. We think that is so horrible it wouldn't even enter our conscience. We think this isn't even human, this is a devil at work. Even those things I have the potential to do. Because anything done by any one of us is symbolic of every one of us, whether it's the highest or the lowest. We all have those choices. We can be any of it. So all of the things that I judge are done by people just like me. Just like me. So when we judge somebody and say, I could never do that, we don't know. We don't know how we would be if we walked a mile in the other man's moccasins. If we had their life experience, we don't know what it is we could be capable of doing. And sorry if you're not a poet. I don't like poetry very much myself. I don't like that sing-song stuff. But every once in a while there's something, a poem that just absolutely paints an incredible picture for me. And Kamloops Centre does that in his book, The Prophet, all the time. So I want to read a little bit from you from his section on crime and punishment. It is when your spirit goes wandering upon the wind that you, alone and unguarded, commit a wrong unto others, and therefore unto yourself. Because we can't hurt anybody else without hurting ourselves. And we can't bring ourselves forward unless we're prepared to bring everyone else forward. And for that wrong committed must you knock and wait a while unheeded at the gate of the blessed. Like the ocean is your God-self. It remains forever undefiled. Even like the sun is your God-self. It knows not the way of the mole, nor seeks at the holes of the serpent. For your God-self does not dwell alone in your being. Much of you is still man, and much of you is not yet man, but a shapeless pygmy that walks asleep in the mist, searching for its own awakening. And it is the man in you that I would now speak of. For it is he, and not your God-self, nor the pygmy in the mist, that knows crime and punishment of crime. Oftentimes have I heard you speak of one who commits a wrong as though he were not one of you, but a stranger unto you and an intruder upon your world. But I say that even as the holy and the righteous cannot rise beyond the highest which is in each of you, so the wicked and the weak cannot fall lower than the lowest which is in each of you. And as a single leaf turns not yellow but with the silent knowledge of the whole tree, so the wrongdoer cannot do wrong without the hidden will of you all. Like a procession you walk together towards your God-self. You are the way and the wayfarers. And when one of you falls down, he falls for those behind him, a caution against the stumbling stone. Aye, and he falls for those ahead of him, who though faster and surer of foot, yet remove not the stumbling stone. We are all in this together. When one of us makes a mistake, we're all making a mistake. And if we think we can go through life bypassing the stumbling stones, which are simply the errors and mistakes that we make in life, and looking only to ourselves and saying, well, here, I'm okay, without knowing that there's a stone there and it needs to be removed for our brothers. We are all in this together. We all made mistakes, yes? Anybody here didn't make that mistake yet? We've all made mistakes. And I don't know about you, but I've learned some of my biggest lessons from my big mistakes, yes? So we all have that history, and it brought us to where we are. Now, I'm not here to excuse wrong actions, to make them right, to condone them. Yes, I'm not here to do that. But we all need to take responsibility for our own experience, and we all need to let everyone else make their own mistakes. We need to know they're doing the best they did. Now, I don't want to sound like a bleeding heart liberal here. I actually am a bleeding heart liberal. I just don't want to sound like it. I don't want to excuse anyone's errors, because we've all made those errors, and hopefully we've all learned from them and we can teach from them. But sometimes we use our hurts and our abuses and our misfortunes as an excuse for remaining small and for not being fulfilled in our life. We all know people who have done that. We get so attached to what happened to us that we're not present now in the opportunities that are available to us. We don't rise up to be everything we can be. So it's up to us how we hold those things that happen to us. And some people say, just suck it up, right? Get over it. And I think that's the best advice. When we look at our past, when we look at our histories, when we look at our misfortunes, it's suck it up and get over it. And that's not said in a heartless way, and it's not meant to minimize your hurts, but it's meant as a loving freedom for you, because that's the only way you can be free, is to get over it. To get over it. And that can be done really pretty quickly. We can take a long time, and we can go into therapy and do all sorts of things if we want, but I think it can be done pretty quickly. Anybody ever try to quit smoking? 17 New Year's Eves in a row, right? And we can do the patch, and we can do hypnosis, and we can do that therapy that makes you, when you smoke so much you get sick. You can do all sorts of things, but ultimately the only thing that will ever allow you to quit smoking is you made up your mind to quit smoking. You said, that's it, I'm done. That's how we get over our past. That's it, I'm done. I no longer want this to have an effect on me. And the thing is, if you don't want it to have an effect on you, you can't let it affect anybody else either. Even the bad guy. You can't blame them anymore. You can't let them feel guilty anymore. You can't tell the story. You can't do any of that. Because if it's gone from your experience and everybody else's. Simple, right? Not so easy. I lived in a community called Soup, which is about 45 minutes outside of Victoria when I was when I'm a minister at the Positive Living Centre there. And Soup is, it's a very windy road out to Soup, because it kind of goes through a mountain pass there, and it's, for the most part, one lane, and you get used to getting behind traffic. So I was driving the Soup Road one line, I was about the 6th car, and I could see the tail lights of the car in front every time we went around a right corner, and it looked like he was signaling. And I thought, he's going to pull over and let everybody by. Great. But every time we come around a corner, he didn't, he'd signal, but he didn't pull over. And I realized he wasn't signaling, he was riding the brakes. And I said to myself, some people live life that way, don't they? Driving in the fast lane with the brakes on. Ever been there? And that's what we do sometimes when we hang on to our past. It's like, okay. And the thing is, not only do we keep ourselves back, but we're punishing all the people who did it too. It's like we're saying, okay, Mom, you were mean to me when I was a kid, so I'm going to get out here in the fast lane, keep the brakes on, I'm not going anywhere in life, and not only that, but I'm keeping you back too. So I said, this very interesting. But I was patient with this guy because I knew that coming up was a passing lane, and we'd all be able to zip past him, right? Guess what? The minute he gets to the passing lane, he puts on his right signal, pulls over, and lets us by. Okay. So to carry that analogy further is, we only keep keep ourselves back when we can keep somebody else back? Huh? Anybody here ever sort of sacrifice what you wanted to do in order that somebody else couldn't get to do what they wanted to do? Okay, so stop the car, pull over, let the baggage out, get off the brakes and get back in the fast lane. You don't need to let all that baggage slow you down. Suck it up, in other words, right? So we need to learn to love people regardless of their actions. And again, I'm not excluding their actions. We all need to take 100% responsibility for our own experience of life, right? Lesson number 1, Science of Mind 101. But you know what we want to do with that sometimes? We want to take responsibility for other people's experience of life. Anybody ever said to you, I don't know that about that Pat. She's been a minister for 12 years. She's been in this teaching for 35 years. And look, she's still all screwed up. But you know what? You don't get to take responsibility for my life. You don't get to fix me, and I don't get to take responsibility for your life. And you don't get to take responsibility for anybody else's experience of their life. So we all need to take 100% responsibility, and we have to do it for ourselves. And we can't change nobody else. A couple of quotes from the Bible. Judge not, that you be not judged. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. Now this does not mean that God is a judgmental, vengeful God. It just means sort of like, it's handled, folks, already. You don't need to do that. As an individual or as a society or culture, you don't need to seek revenge. You don't need to right the wrongs. I got that covered. That's God saying that, right? Remember Flip Wilson? God's going to get you for that, right? God actually does get us for that, just in the natural unfolding of the universe. We don't need to look for God to get us for that in the same way as that we as humans would get somebody for that. Because every action has within it its own result, its own punishment or its own reward. So we don't need to worry about anybody else except our own. It's not necessary for individuals to seek vengeance at all. So all the things that I judge are done by people just like me. In the past 100 years or so, we've come a long way in our, I was going to say tolerance, but I don't like that word because it implies that there's something to tolerate. In our acceptance, I guess, and our openness. We now realize that a white man is no more a child of God than a brown man. That a man is no more a child of God than a woman is. Now see if you can stay with me, it gets harder. We realize that an intelligent person is no more a child of God than a stupid person. A little bit more of a stretch? Okay. We come to realize then that a good person is no more a child of God than a bad person. There's only one of us. There's only one of us. And those who express good and those who express bad are expressing aspects of us. So, and also good and bad are just my judgments, aren't they? It's the old, what our parents said to us, do as I say, not as I do. It's okay when I do it, it's a good thing when I do it, when you do it, it's a bad thing. When that culture does it, it's a bad thing. When our culture does it, it's a good thing. Right? Look at around the room, things that are unforgivable in some cultures are perfectly acceptable in others. So nothing of itself is inherently good or bad, except that we add that judgment to us. Anybody have a black sheep in the family? Anybody is the black sheep in the family? You know, the black sheep is harder to love, right? I mean, it's easy to love the little golden girl and the little fair-haired boy that do as they're told and behave themselves, right? And we want to discipline the black sheep. We want to shape up the black sheep. We want to correct the black sheep, and we all know that doesn't work. The black sheep needs to be given even more love so that the black sheep can learn to love and start acting in a lovable way. Man, that's hard to remember sometimes, isn't it? So we have to be taught to love. And getting back to our songs again, we have to teach ourselves to love first ourselves. back to the self-esteem thing. Deepak Chopra says, self-esteem is the greatest gift we can give to our children. To a growing child, the sensitive encouragement of a teacher is as important as a hot lunch. What makes for a straighter spine, vitamin D or self-esteem? And again, we're not talking about being arrogant or conceited. We're not talking about trying to prove ourselves better than somebody else. That's the sign of low self-esteem when you see that. Self-esteem, loving ourselves, comes from knowing who and what we are. We're not just physical bodies with things walking. We are a home for God. There's a spirit within ourselves. We are built of God's stuff. We're the divine expressing on the earth. How dare we not love ourselves? So self-esteem. And it's a lifelong process. Again, to quote from Deepak Chopra, he says, once we reach adulthood, gaining the wholehearted respect of co-workers wards off heart disease as effectively as counting milligrams of cholesterol. So, if you work such a way that all your co-workers respect and love you, you can eat all the chocolate and cheese you want. You know, ultimately it's all up here, isn't it? Once I can love myself, I can love you. And then the last verse is, even though I love myself, I want to keep growing. I want to keep expanding. I want to keep learning how to love myself more so that I can love you more, so that we can love the world more. As Maya Angelou says, when we come to it, so that we can come to it. So how can I love the world? I can love the world by seeing that all the things I judge are done by people just like me. That till the birth of peace on earth that only love can bring, war can't bring it, justice can't bring it, revenge can't bring it, violence can't bring it, not even being right can't bring peace on earth. The only thing that can bring peace is love. So till the birth of peace on earth that only love can bring, I love the world. I grow the world by loving everything. By loving everything. How can you love everything? Well, the only way to love everything is to remember that everything is God. Everything is God. We can't separate from anything. It's all one. But you know, we want to justify and understand and explain, and we want an answer to that old age question, one that comes up for everybody. Well, if there really is a God, why does he let this happen, right? And to me, that's the question we will probably never achieve a satisfactory answer to as long as we're living in human bodies. I think we do, but I suspect it's kind of like a postgraduate course that we only get after we've moved on, so we can't come back and tell us. But the best answer I have heard is that we, being children of God, are born free. We have freedom of choice. If we are to be free to choose, we have to have things to choose amongst, or to choose from. So we can only be free to choose goodness if there is what we call badness. So the answer to that is that we are free. We are free to choose and to create. And somehow I think learning to choose good is our purpose here on earth. I think that's why we're here. Because when we learn to choose good, we come closer to God. There's a couple of ways you can come closer to God. One is physically. Ever sit with somebody when they were dying? A very moving experience. And for the most part, people have what we used to call hallucinations. Actually, I think they're visions. I think that people, when they're approaching death, tend to kind of mosey on over to the other side and check it out and come back and rest a little bit, and then they go over again a little bit. They're kind of checking it out, making sure it's safe and secure, and then they can let go. So in that way you can come close to God. If you're on top of a mountain and there's another town on top of the next mountain over, maybe 2 kilometers away, the eagle can fly there in 30 seconds, right? But you and I, we have to climb down the mountain and then climb back up again. It takes us a little longer. I think we can be close to God in that way, and that God's really just over here, but we have to do a little work to get there. So I'm really looking forward to the experience of death. But I expect I'll climb a few more mountains before I get there. So, and the other way we can become close to God is becoming more like God. Not a physical, but a spiritual closeness to God. Becoming more and more of our own godness. Becoming more God-like. So that's how we become closer to God. And how do we do that? How do we become closer to God? By loving everything. Right? By actually striving to actually be love. So until the birth of peace on earth that only love can bring, I'll help it grow by loving everything. I love you. Namaste.